The meeting that changed everything. My name is Kelrath, and I serve as Chief Navigator for the Galactic Transit Authority. For 200 years, I have guided ships through the mapped routes of known space. In all that time, I have never questioned the fundamental truth of our existence: navigation through the void requires the chorus. The chorus is what we call it, the collective neural network that connects all navigator species across the galaxy. The Velcroni with their quantum sensing tentacles. The Morpheus Collective with their hive consciousness. The crystalline Zir who perceive spacetime as a physical texture. Every species capable of void navigation shares one critical trait: the ability to connect to the chorus and feel the currents of space itself. Humans, we believed, lacked this ability entirely. Their neural structures were too simple, too isolated, too bound by individual consciousness. They could fly ships through normal space easily enough, but navigating the void, the dimensional layer between star systems where distances collapse and reality bends, that was impossible for them. Until Captain Sarah Chen proved us wrong. The incident at Waystation 7. I first heard about the incident at Waystation 7 during a routine briefing. A human cargo vessel, the Meridian Dawn, had arrived at the station after traveling through the void. This alone wasn't remarkable. Human ships often hired navigator species to guide them through void passages. What made it remarkable was that the ship's navigator, a Velcroni named Thos, had died 3 days into the journey. Void sickness, the medical report said. A sudden neural collapse that shut down his connection to the chorus instantly. Standard protocol in such situations is clear: exit the void immediately, even if you're nowhere near your destination. Return to normal space and send for rescue. Attempting to navigate the void without a chorus-connected navigator is suicide. The void doesn't follow normal physics. Without guidance, a ship could emerge anywhere, inside a star, scattered across different dimensions, or simply lost forever in the folded spaces between realities. The Meridian Dawn should have been lost. Instead, it arrived at Waystation 7 exactly on schedule, with its human captain claiming she had navigated the remaining 2 weeks of void travel herself. Impossible, we all agreed. Clearly, the human was confused or lying. Perhaps Thos had set automated coordinates before dying. Perhaps the ship had simply drifted along established currents and gotten lucky. But then I read Captain Chen's flight logs, and my certainty began to crack. Reading the impossible. The logs were detailed, precise, and completely accurate. Captain Chen had documented every course correction, every dimensional shift, every navigation decision she'd made during the 2-week journey. She described the void's currents in language that no human should know. She identified hazard zones that weren't on any official maps but that experienced navigators knew to avoid through course sense alone. Most troubling of all, she had discovered a shortcut, a fold in the void that reduced travel time by 18%. Our best navigators had been using this route for decades, but it had never been officially documented because the course couldn't fully explain it in words. You could only find it by feeling the texture of spacetime itself. Captain Chen had found it on her second day of solo navigation. The Transit Authority called an emergency hearing. I was asked to attend as the technical expert. They wanted me to explain how this was possible, to find the flaw in the story, to prove that the human captain had somehow cheated or gotten impossibly lucky. I entered the hearing chamber expecting to debunk a fraud. I left questioning everything I knew about navigation. The captain explains. Captain Sarah Chen was not what I expected. Most species, when facing a room full of skeptical officials, show signs of nervousness, changed skin pigmentation, pheromone shifts, defensive posture. The human simply walked to the center platform, looked directly at each of us in turn, and smiled. I understand you don't believe I navigated the void alone, she began, her voice calm and clear. I wouldn't believe it either, if our situations were reversed. Let me show you how I did it. She activated a holographic display, and my breath stopped, or rather, my respiratory systems faltered in surprise. The display showed a 3-dimensional map of void space, but not like any navigation chart I'd seen before. Where official charts showed currents as flowing lines of color, Captain Chen's map showed something else entirely, patterns of pressure and release, areas of density and emptiness, structures that looked almost like weather systems. When Thos died, I was terrified, she explained. I knew the standard protocol said we were dead. But I had 3 days before we reached a major current junction, and I spent every second of that time observing. Watching how the void moved around us. Noting patterns in the sensor data. And I realized something. She expanded a section of the display, showing intricate detail. The void isn't empty chaos. It has structure, rhythm, patterns. It's like an ocean, complicated and dangerous, yes, but followable if you know what to look for. And humans, well, we've been navigating Earth's oceans for thousands of years before we ever reached space. The pattern reader. A Velcrani in the audience made a dismissive sound with his tentacles. But you cannot sense the chorus. How did you perceive these patterns without quantum-sensitive organs? Captain Chen's smile grew wider. I used instruments. Gravitational sensors, dimensional variance detectors, quantum field monitors, equipment every void-capable ship carries for emergency diagnostics. Instead of feeling the void, I measured it. Then I looked for patterns in the measurements. She pulled up a data stream, numbers flowing across the display in cascading columns. Look here, this is void current density over a 6-hour period. See how it oscillates? That's a pattern. And here, these spikes in dimensional variance, they happen in clusters, with consistent intervals between them. Another pattern. The void might be chaotic, but chaos has structure. It has rules. You just have to be patient enough to observe them. I stared at the data, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. She was right. The patterns were there, clear as starlight once you knew to look for them. But this method was so different from course navigation that we had never thought to analyze the void this way. Where course navigators feel their way through the void instinctively, sensing the currents through quantum entanglement with spacetime itself, Captain Chen had treated it as a puzzle to solve. She had turned navigation from an art into a science. This shortcut you found, I heard myself say, my voice barely above a whisper. How did you identify it? She switched displays again, showing a complex 3-dimensional model. I noticed an anomaly in the pressure patterns. Like a fold in fabric, where 2 areas of spacetime were pressed unusually close together. The sensors showed it as a zone of extreme dimensional variance, which usually means danger. But when I analyzed the pattern of the variance, it was too regular, too stable. It wasn't random chaos, it was a standing wave, a permanent feature of the void structure. She rotated the model, highlighting specific data points. So I calculated the entry vector that would let us ride that standing wave without getting torn apart by the variance. It was like surfing, catch the wave at the right angle, and it carries you forward faster than swimming against normal currents. Miss the angle, and you're crushed. But the math was clear. The pattern was there. So I committed to the course. The question that haunted me. The hearing lasted 3 more hours. Officials questioned Captain Chen from every angle, trying to find holes in her story, searching for evidence of deception. She answered every question with the same calm precision, showing her data, explaining her reasoning, demonstrating her methods. In the end, the transit authority had no choice but to accept the truth. A human had successfully navigated the void using nothing but instruments and pattern recognition. But one question haunted me as the hearing concluded, a question I finally asked as Captain Chen was preparing to leave. Captain, how many other humans can do what you've done? She paused, turning to face me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I'm not sure, she admitted. I'm the first to try it successfully. But I've already shared my methods with the Human Navigation Research Institute. They're training others now, refining the technique, improving the instruments. Within a year, I expect dozens of human navigators. Within 5 years, maybe hundreds. She must have seen something in my expression, shock, perhaps, or the dawning realization of what this meant. Your species has relied on the course for navigation since you reached the stars, she continued, her voice gentle. That's not a weakness. It's a different approach. But humans, we've always been good at finding alternative solutions when we can't do something the normal way. We measure what we can't feel. We calculate what we can't sense. We find patterns in chaos because we've spent our entire history surviving in environments that wanted us dead. She smiled again, but this time there was something else in it, not arrogance, but confidence born from 10,000 years of human problem-solving. The void might be impossible for humans to sense naturally. But impossible just means we have to be more creative. And creativity? That's what we do best. 6 months later. The training facility on Station Nova was deliberately isolated, built at the edge of charted space where accidents wouldn't endanger civilian traffic. I had requested permission to observe the human navigation training program, and somewhat to my surprise, Captain Chen had personally approved my visit. The main observation deck overlooked a dozen simulator pods where human candidates practiced void navigation in virtual environments. Each pod was surrounded by holographic displays showing sensor readings, pattern analyses, and trajectory calculations, an explosion of data that would overwhelm most chorus navigators who relied on instinct rather than analysis. Captain Chen found me there, watching a trainee successfully navigate a particularly treacherous void current simulation. "They're remarkable," I said, not hiding my amazement. "In 6 months, you've trained 12 humans to navigator certification level. It took me 20 years to reach that level through the chorus." She nodded, her eyes tracking the trainee's progress. Different methods, different learning curves. Chorus navigation is instinctive, it takes time to develop that instinct. Human navigation is technical, it takes time to learn the patterns and calculations, but once you understand the fundamentals, improvement comes quickly. The discovery that changed everything. "I need to show you something," Captain Chen said, gesturing for me to follow her to a more private observation room. Once inside, she activated a secure holographic display. 3 weeks ago, one of our trainees, Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, made a discovery during a standard practice run through the void. The display showed a region of void space that, according to my extensive knowledge of galactic navigation, should have been empty, just another stretch of featureless dimensional nothing between star systems. Marcus was running pattern analysis on what he thought was background noise in the sensor data, Captain Chen explained. But he realized the noise wasn't random. It was structured. Regular. And when he mapped it properly, he found this. The display shifted, and I felt my respiratory system stutter again. The empty void space was anything but empty. There were currents there, pathways, entire networks of navigable routes that the chorus had simply never detected because they existed at frequencies or dimensional layers that chorus-connected species couldn't perceive. "We call them the silent currents," Captain Chen continued. "They're invisible to chorus navigation but clear as day to our instruments. And they connect to regions of space that the Galactic Transit Authority has marked as unreachable, void dead zones where chorus navigators can't sense any safe passage." I stared at the map, my mind struggling to accept the implications. "How many of these silent currents have you found?" "So far?" 17 major routes and 43 minor ones. We've successfully tested 5 of them. Each test proved the routes are stable, safe, and significantly faster than established paths." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Kelrath, we think there might be an entire second navigation network in the void that your species simply can't perceive." The question of difference. I sat heavily in one of the observation chairs, my limbs feeling suddenly weak. "Why?" I asked. "Why can you see what we cannot?" Captain Chen sat beside me, her expression thoughtful. "Best theory we have? It's because we approach the problem differently from the ground up. Chorus navigators perceive the void as a living thing, currents you feel, space-time you sense through quantum connection. It's intuitive, organic, beautiful even." She gestured at the display. "Humans can't do that. We're deaf to the chorus, blind to those quantum sensations. So instead, we treat the void as a physics problem. We measure everything: gravity fluctuations, dimensional variance, quantum field density, temporal distortion, even exotic particles that most species consider meaningless background radiation. She pulled up another display, this one showing incomprehensible columns of numbers and equations. And when you measure everything without preconceptions about what matters and what doesn't, you find patterns in data that other species filter out as noise. These silent currents? They register on sensors that chorus navigators don't pay attention to because their chorus sense already tells them everything they think they need to know. So it's not that we can't see them, I said slowly, understanding dawning. It's that we never thought to look. Exactly, Captain Chen confirmed. Your species developed navigation based on natural abilities. Ours had to develop it from scratch using technology. Neither approach is better or worse, they're just different. But different perspectives reveal different truths. The diplomatic crisis. The revelation of the silent currents sent shockwaves through the Galactic Transit Authority. An emergency council was convened, with representatives from all major navigator species. I was called to testify about what I had observed at the human training facility. The chamber was tense with fear and anger. Speaker Vorthos, a senior Velcrani navigator, addressed the council with barely contained hostility. The humans have discovered routes through what we've always known as dead zones, he announced, his tentacles writhing in agitation. They claim these routes are safe, but how can we verify this? How can we trust navigation methods that bypass the course entirely? What if they're wrong? What if these silent currents are actually deadly, and they've simply been lucky so far? Counselor Myrax, a Zir crystalline being, chimed in with a frequency that translated as deep concern. Beyond safety questions, there's the matter of control. The Transit Authority has maintained galactic order for millennia by controlling the void routes. If humans can navigate anywhere, anytime, without our guidance or approval, what prevents chaos? What prevents unsanctioned travel to restricted zones? I listened to hours of debate, fear dressed up as concern for safety and order. But I understood what really frightened them: irrelevance. For as long as anyone could remember, navigation had been the domain of course-connected species. We had been essential, gatekeepers to the stars, guides to the void. Humans threatened that monopoly with nothing more than clever instruments and pattern recognition. Finally, I requested permission to speak. The chamber fell silent. I was known as a traditionalist, someone who respected the old ways. They expected me to support the conservative position. I have spent 6 months observing human navigation methods, I began, my voice carrying across the chamber. I have watched their training, studied their techniques, even attempted to understand their mathematical models. And I have reached a conclusion that troubles many of you. I activated my own holographic display, showing side-by-side comparisons of course routes and silent current routes. The humans are right. And more importantly, they are safe. Their methods are different from ours, but they are no less valid. Perhaps they are even superior in certain applications. The chamber erupted in protests. I raised my voice to continue. I do not say this lightly. But consider, we have always believed that certain regions of space were unreachable. Dead zones. Void barriers. We accepted these limitations because our core sense told us no safe path existed. The humans looked at the same regions and asked a different question, not can we sense a path, but does a path exist that we're not sensing? I highlighted several routes on the display. In 3 months, human navigators have opened 17 new major trade routes, reducing travel times to frontier worlds by an average of 30%. They have found safe passages through regions we declared impassable. They have expanded the boundaries of known navigable space by 12%. I turned to face the council directly. We can fear this change, or we can embrace it. We can cling to our monopoly on navigation, or we can learn from these new methods and improve our own understanding of the void. The choice is ours, but the humans will continue navigating regardless of what we decide here today. The unexpected alliance. After the council session, I found Captain Chen waiting in the corridor outside the chamber. She looked concerned but not surprised by the contentious debate. "Thank you for speaking up," she said. "I know that couldn't have been easy, given your position. I gestured for her to walk with me. I spoke truth. That is never easy when truth challenges comfortable beliefs. But I have a question for you, Captain. What do you want from all this? Recognition? Economic advantage? Political leverage? She was quiet for a moment, considering her answer carefully. Honestly? We want partnership. Humans are good at instrument-based navigation, but we're still learning. We can't sense the chorus, which means we might miss dangers that your kind would instinctively recognize. The ideal situation isn't humans replacing chorus navigators, it's humans and chorus navigators working together. She stopped walking, turning to face me directly. Imagine a navigation team with both skill sets. A chorus navigator who can feel the currents and sense danger instinctively, paired with a human navigator who can measure the silent currents and calculate optimal routes through data analysis. Combined perception covering more of the void's complexity than either approach alone. The idea struck me with the force of revelation. A hybrid navigation system. Exactly, she confirmed. Your species have millennia of chorus navigation experience. We have new instruments and pattern recognition methods. Together, we could map the void more completely than either species could alone. We could find routes that are both chorus detectable and silent current accessible. We could verify each other's findings, catch each other's mistakes. The new beginning. It took 3 more months of negotiations, demonstrations, and cautious testing, but eventually, the Galactic Transit Authority approved the first experimental human chorus navigator partnerships. I volunteered to be the first chorus navigator in the program, paired with Captain Chen herself. Our maiden voyage together was a standard cargo run from Core Station to the Meridian colonies, a 2-week journey by conventional routes, 1 week by the silent current route that human navigators had discovered. As we entered the void, I felt the familiar sensation of the chorus connecting me to spacetime's quantum fabric. The currents flowed around our ship, visible to my chorus sense as rivers of twisted reality, paths worn smooth by countless ships before us. I've got the silent currents mapped, Captain Chen reported from the navigation station beside mine. There's a strong current running parallel to the main chorus route, but about 3 degrees off axis. If we angle toward it now, we can ride both currents simultaneously. I felt along the path she described, and to my amazement, I could sense something there, not a full chorus current, but a whisper of structure, like feeling the edge of a current just beyond my perception range. Perhaps it had always been there, and I simply hadn't known to look for it. I sense it, I said, adjusting our course. The chorus current actually seems to reinforce the silent current in this region. They're not separate pathways, they're interconnected. That's fascinating, Captain Chen replied, excitement in her voice. My instruments show the same thing. Look at this data, the dimensional variance patterns sync up perfectly with your course readings. It's like they're 2 aspects of the same phenomenon, just perceived through different methods. We spent the journey mapping these connections, discovering how chorus currents and silent currents intertwined in ways neither human instruments nor chorus sense could fully perceive alone. By the time we reached Meridian, we had documented 12 new navigation principles that combined both approaches. More importantly, we had proven that cooperation was possible, that different methods of understanding the void could complement rather than compete with each other. 5 years forward. I'm writing this log 5 years after the Meridian Dawn incident, 5 years after Captain Chen proved that humans could navigate the void. The galaxy looks different now. The Transit Authority has certified over 300 human navigators and established partnership protocols that pair them with chorus navigators on most major routes. Trade times have decreased by an average of 40%. Previously unreachable colonies now have regular supply lines. The silent currents have opened territories that we thought would take centuries to access. But more than the practical changes, there's been a shift in thinking. The rigid certainty that there was only one correct way to navigate the void has given way to curiosity and collaboration. Delcrani navigators are learning to read instrument data. Zir crystalline beings are developing new sensor technologies. Even the Morpheus Collective, who once insisted that only hive minds could truly understand the void, now train their navigators in human pattern recognition methods. I serve now as director of the hybrid navigation program, training the next generation of navigators, both course-connected and human, in combined methods. Captain Chen leads the Silent Current Mapping Initiative, constantly pushing deeper into the void, discovering new routes, new patterns, new possibilities. Yesterday, one of our newest teams, a human navigator named James Kim paired with a young Velcrani named Thesra, found something extraordinary. A convergence point where 15 different silent currents and 12 chorus pathways intersect, creating a navigation hub that could reduce cross-galaxy travel time by 70%. They're calling it Chen's Junction, in honor of the captain who started this revolution. The truth we learned. Looking back, I realized that the real lesson wasn't about navigation techniques or void routes or silent currents. The real lesson was about perspective. For millennia, we course-connected species believed we understood the void completely because we could sense it directly. We felt the currents, so we assumed we felt all the currents. We perceived the structure of space-time, so we assumed we perceived all of it. Our natural abilities made us confident, perhaps overconfident, in our knowledge. Humans, lacking those natural abilities, couldn't afford that confidence. They had to question everything, measure everything, look for patterns in data we dismissed as noise. Their weakness became their strength because it forced them to develop methods that revealed truths we never suspected existed. They say humans can't navigate the void because they can't sense the chorus. They're right, in a way. But what we learned is that sensing the chorus is only one method of navigation, not the only method. The void is vast and complex, and it takes many different perspectives to understand it fully. Captain Sarah Chen crossed the void without a map, using nothing but instruments, intelligence, and the peculiarly human tendency to find patterns where others see chaos. In doing so, she didn't just navigate from one station to another. She navigated us all toward a better understanding of what's possible when different species, different methods, different perspectives work together rather than insisting only one way is correct. The void is still dangerous, still mysterious, still full of unknowns. But now we explore it together, combining course sense and instrument analysis, instinct and calculation, feeling and measurement. And the routes we're discovering lead to places we never dreamed possible.